we go. Content. All right, I'm pretty sure this is kind of a nasty complex.
He's tiny.
Yeah, she is. She's all of probably 4'11". She's tiny. I saw Jose go, ooh. I'm gonna play it one more time. One more time. Find something to address and like kind of triage it. So like, what's our biggest like safety? Like think there first and then work down from that. Safety into major movement flaws.
I think so when she received it, she seemed to receive it with her butt coming inside a little bit. I would say sit down a little bit more.
Yeah, that's 100% what I would start with her.
Yeah.
You can see the difference. Like she's like her landing, those knees are super forward. Her
Hmm.
hips like playing ball a little bit, but it's really not backing down like if she was about to squat, right?
Hmm.
It's a little bit of that muted hip. And if you fast forward to her squat clean rep, you see the difference egregiously. Like immediately, she's not in her squat, but you see where the hip is versus like how far out those knees are. Like you can
Hmm.
see the difference there big time. So I would address that first. Because if she catches and leans back, weight into the spine with the spine really hyperextended would be like the biggest safety concern as far as her lifting. There's a shitload wrong with this, right?
Hmm.
Not to knock her. But yeah, I would do that. I would make her maybe just hold a pause there for a second. If she holds that pause and she
It'll
can
force
start to
her.
correct it, it's going to force her. And now I can also address something else because she's going to auto correct herself by pausing in the receive of that power clean. What's something else?
On her setup, I mean, a couple things, I guess. I would
Not a
have
bad
her
spot.
start with her legs a little bit, or feet a little bit closer. And she is raising her butt a little bit too soon.
Yeah. So liftoff could be addressed. I do think she's a hair wide here. She has
Mhm.
pretty. I got to coach her a little bit before I left her uptied. She's a very tight person. So I think that's why she's like kind of auto going wider.
Mhm.
But I do think the feet could come in, and she doesn't have trouble like setting a neutral spine at all. So I think if you brought the feet in but allowed her to have a little bit of toe out, that would help her a lot.
But also
Let's.
she's like this. She needs to like bring her
Oh,
shoulders back
she's
and down.
Yeah, the shoulders backing down is when she's gonna have to fight, and it's for sure gonna
Like,
take some time with her. She's very, very rolled
yeah.
forward, and she has super tight shoulders, which she's actually I don't know if she's still addressing it, but it was something she was working on. She's a good person, like to like you say something and she would care and do it. But let's watch her butt. It does go too fast.
Quicker elbows too.
So what would you address? So like she's pausing in her power, right? I know I don't love these elbows. What would you hit first?
Her lift off.
Yeah, I would go with the liftoff too. Because I think if you paused her, she's also not gonna love staying like this. And she's probably gonna loosen up and get it on her shoulders more if she's stopping there, right? Anytime we stop and make someone hold, they kind of have to find some good position to hold in. It's very hard to hold in bad position. So yeah, I would go lift off first. Let's say she fixes that beautifully. Let's say the pause fixes her butt backing down and her elbows. Yeah, see how she gets them through there more because she kind of has to.
Mhm.
What's like the last big thing?
I don't really like her front squat that much. She's just caving in. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
there's
like
something
this
about
thing.
it.
A lot collapsing there, right?
Yeah.
You're spot on. I would slow her down in the front squat. and I would give her that like, hey, let's push the knees out super hard, right? She's caving in, the heels are peeling off the floor, the knees are collapsing in. Let's think like root causes of this. Like if the butt doesn't go back and down well, it can make her come forward into the heels. If the knees collapse, it can also make her come forward in the heels. So if you watch her front squat, butt back and down's
Ooh.
there. Beautiful, right? Like she
But
hits
then
that good. Ignore her toes real quick. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
She's very aware that she's a very toesy athlete. She's one of these people that if you cue, they'll text you at 10 p.m. and be like, if I wiggle my toes, will that help? Like she's one of those like very analytical, goes too deep than she even should sometimes. So she's super aware that she's toesy. So she's giving this big exaggeration and her butt's going back and down. So right here, I know that her line of action and that butt going back and down is not the cause of her getting weird and collapsing in the bottom, but it's going to be more of that like, there's the valgus knee. Here we go. You see the heels come off. She hits the bottom and loses all that tension down there. So I would slow her down with the cue. I want you to drive your knees out from the start all the way through the finish. And I think that will assist her with those heels and like that loss of tension that Jose brought up and that like collapse. Certainly not someone you watch front squatting and go, no, that's comfortable. That one looks painful almost, right? Yeah, and she's just she's fighting positions too. She's a very tight person.
Like it's
Yeah,
clear that she's strong.
Yeah, she's strong as shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not a weak girl, especially for her size.
What are some of the reasons why the knees buckle in?
Could be. Sorry, I took a bite of food at a bad time. Could just be like motor skills, like motor recruitment. Like her brain to those glutes that are gonna be what holds the knees out are just not really like connected yet. So sometimes when you have people move through range of motions, like they'll be able to push their knees out at the top, and then as they get to the bottom of the squat, they kind of lose it, even though they're like trying. She just needs to continue to try that to make those connections. That's why you hear the term mobility rather than flexibility. The mobility is like hardware of the body, software of the brain talking to the muscles. So it could just be that. It could be she's just not activating the glutes well either. Like, and she's just her glute medius and all that structure in the hips are just not on at all, which does happen to people sometimes. The muscle just isn't firing correctly. That's why you ever see like some of the elite athletes, they're doing these like really kind of oddball warm-ups, very slow, and it's like they're trying to find this deep burn in the muscle. That's why they're doing it. They're trying to turn the glutes on. I've seen people do like these like pulls for their lats before they snatch, so they have stabilization of the shoulder. So it could be really any of those two things.
So just a couple of things. The whole knee thing has just been on my mind the last like couple of days actually. So for me, what I was noticing when I'm like at a lighter load, I can be so focused to keep the knees out. But once I have probably around 60 to 70%,
then you get.
And then I just, no matter what focus I try, it doesn't make a difference. So I've been getting really caught up on like just going lighter loads until I get to that point and find that threshold. But then
it could be a strength thing, right? Like if I take somebody and I put them into a front rack hold, and they have this beautiful, perfect front rack, and they're upright, their elbows are pointing across the room, their lats are engaged, so their thoracic spine is not like a fishing rod. And I just start stacking 45s on. Eventually, it's going to start to fall and collapse. And it's not because they don't have the motor recruitment ability or the flexibility, whatever it's going to be to get there. It's just the load is actually starting to win. It could be part that, just like the glutes just need to catch up a little bit as far as like the knee stabilization goes, versus like the load that's on the bar.
And then I was going to say, I've been like just thinking about this a lot the last couple of days. And then just this morning, I was watching some of the Rogue Invitational from 2 weeks ago. And like, I'd say like, I don't know, 25% of the lady athletes were having that same thing happening in their squat cleans. They were going pretty heavy on squat cleans. I was like, damn, so they're doing it too. So it's not.
And
like,
you watch Tia, and Tia's knees almost touch. It's crazy.
Oh my God. So bad.
Yeah. So there's I'm gonna tell you like why that's probably not something that there's a large focus on, like in her training or some of the others. There's a lot of studies that say like the valgus knee doesn't show any risk of knee injury. The caveat to this
That's what
to the study is they don't know over time. So they
Yeah.
don't know if you took those same people and were like, where you at 10 years down the road, if that would be the case.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That I was going to say that there are like two lines of action. If you are like a squat university will be like, no, you have knees out, knees out, knees out. But there are like other detractors that they say, no, you have to even learn how to do knees in because at some point you will have to do it. Same thing with like deadlifts. It's like you're like your lumbar spine is curved. No, you have to learn how to do that because you are not deadlifting barbells for life. So it's like two lines of action
It's like real, it's like what he means too is like real world living, picking things up and moving versus like perfect barbell with handles all the time. And they're completely right. Oh shit, I lost my train of thought. Obviously you want to strive to like have all of those points of performances down and locked in. And I think what you're doing too, Justin, like lightening the load a little bit and really fighting it and finding that you're basically threshold training yourself, which is great. You know, finding that line to where like you gotta fight it, but you're able to keep it, and it's like a little bit of a battle. That's gonna strengthen that for you too. But to like Jose's point, if you got to pick up a couch, your back's probably gonna be rounded, you know, on that deadlift. And I mean, you see some like the best deadlifters in the world. They pick up 1,000 pounds and they have a thoracic spine that's rounded as hell. But there's no shifts in movement, so they stay pretty safe. But I would keep doing what you're doing because by the focus of you driving the knees out, you are creating those neurological pathways and connections, and you like threshold training the load of that as well. You're going to allow it to strengthen in the proper positions versus if somebody's front squatting and they're turning into, this is my favorite example, or back squat, and they're turning into this big good morning and their butt goes up and then they kind of stand. Like, what do you look at that and go, what are you actually training? You're training your glutes and your hamstrings, and the quads are getting missed a little bit because the movement pattern is off. Versus if I take the load off, I make that person back squat or front squat very vertical. Okay, now I'm making sure we're hitting everything we're supposed to be hitting in this. And even though it's lighter loads, weaker areas are going to get trained the way they should, and they'll be able to catch up. Those weak areas catch up to our strong areas. Like I'm a great example when it comes to that hingy squat. By my quads getting stronger and me back squatting or front squatting less, I actually raise everything because it actually caught up for a change. Does that make sense too?
So
Yeah,
the reason why people sometimes, you know, when they're back squatting or front squatting, they raise their butt up and they do like that good morning is because they are stronger. Their hamstrings and their glutes are stronger than their quads.
Yeah, sometimes like posterior is just taking
Right.
over.
Okay.
Like I think for
Yeah, that
me,
makes sense.
if I use me as an example, like I have a way stronger pull and way stronger glute and hamstrings than I do quads in my anterior. So I want to like get those guys involved as much as I can. Some people it's not going to be the case. Some people it is going to be like I was saying to Justin, just that motor skills of moving with good mechanics and keeping the chest up. Some people are just they squat day one and they immediately bend over because they just don't have the skill of squatting with an upright chest, or maybe you know it is strength and skill related. So it could go either way. But typically, like you see somebody that's been crossing a long time, experiment with it. Ask them, are you a stronger deadlifter or a squatter if you consider it? And most of the time the answer is like, oh, I'm a way better deadlifter. Yeah. Or like Hunter's a really good example. Hunter's a friend of ours, and he's on a bad day, he can casually clean like power clean like 300. And then if you load him up on a back squat, he's like slowing down at like 245. And then you go, okay, well, why is that happening? And it's his pull is just ridiculously strong compared to, you know, what his anterior needs to do. Speaking of which, I have a video of him. Let's put him on. Let me find it real quick. It's buried on my screen somewhere here. There he is. I think this is 3 cleans, 3 hang cleans. It was like build to a heavy triple or something like that.
Oof.
Stupid strong. Got some weird movement kinks for sure, right?
It's just very fast.
He's super fast.
Like that deadlift didn't look great.
Not pretty.
He always does the starfish.
Yeah, he's a starfisher and a half. Like,
I
if
was
I don't-
surprised that he goes from here and he jumps. He's not like
Oh,
one
he jumps
leg.
back.
He can jump 275. Like, wow.
He's strong. Like he's very like if you ever it doesn't matter what lift you're watching him, he handles the bar.
Yeah, very powerful. I think he does the hang. You know, comparing it to mine, he definitely does not do what I do. He stays over the bar.
No, let's go to it. He does not hitch.
Yeah.
Like I do like that position. He's got the old like slight arm bend because he's trying to gain tension. He's someone that hates shoulders back and down and getting into that position. So that's like almost how he compensates it.
Yeah.
If Hunter came to me and was like, I want you to be my coach, and I see this movement for what I do for Hunter is going to greatly depend on what his goals are. Like if he goes, I want to make Masters CrossFit Games, I'm probably gonna ignore this a little. I'm choking. Sorry, a little bit. Get my water. Because he's been doing that now for 10 years and pretty effectively. So if I were try to regress him, we're gonna lose time on like what his goal is. Does that make sense? If he goes, I just want to be really healthy for my kid and never sustain injury, then I'm gonna probably try to straighten those arms out because I don't want to risk him like ever like tearing a bicep or something like that. Clearly, he generates a lot of power. So let's look at his hinge. He actually shoots him forward a little bit early, but like look at his toes. I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I think him going to that toe way too early is why he shifts the knees immediately. Let's watch his extension. He actually does a great job, a pretty damn good job at his extension. If you look, like he's completely vertical and then the arms bend. What I don't love is he's like a hip smasher. So
Yeah.
on this first rep, if you watch it, watch his jump forward. It's very slight, and that's why that happens. Oops, that was bad. On a power clean, he's strong enough to save it. If you turn this into a squat clean, I think he misses the lift because of that forwardness and that hip bump. He kind of corrects it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't do it again. And then it just honestly, in my opinion, becomes a starfish. I would love if he corrected his feet. Like this one is not even the bad one, but look how wide it is. It's like if you took him and shifted him over, right? He's got his foot maybe 8 inches past, and you lined it up with this crack. This mat's 4 foot wide. That's far, and he's almost to the edge of that mat. So I would just have him train pauses, because if it's an event and his goal, and I'm only saying this because he's thought about it slightly, but his goal is to go make CrossFit Masters. What if it's a power clean event, and if he has the ability to actually get to like a slightly above parallel or like parallel spot, he would probably put 40, 45 pounds on his power clean. Because I don't think I have ever, in 3 years of watching him lift, seen him do that. He always starfishes. So that would be my biggest thing to work on for him.
But is that mobility? Is that mobility for him then?
It's just Hunter is a good athlete, and the probably only two people ever that have like bickered with him to coach him, and it's taken me 2.5 years to gain his trust where he actually comes to me for advice now. It's just he's good, so he's hard to get to change. And he's not an asshole by any means. He'll listen to you and nod his head, but his next rep will be the same thing. I want to point something out too. He's got this early arm bend, right? And as he accelerates, if you watch his elbow, it slightly straightens out. I think these are even better. You see how that went
Yeah.
straight versus
Yeah.
there? So even with that tension, if he can find the tension, it would be even better because he's getting to a straight arm anyway. He's probably got more power, so I retract my statement earlier. Yeah, I would start with not star fishing for him. And if you
That's
see his
definitely
squat
good.
stance, he
Question,
squats fairly
what do
narrow
you
too.
prescribe? What would you prescribe to that? Like, different positions of cutting it, like 3/4 of squat,
Pauses.
or because you want to go in a squat, right? Not too wide, like the same.
So you know what I would do? I would actually. He's a good athlete, so like I know him very personally, so I know if I give him a prescription that's going to be 10 rounds at 50%. By round 3, he's going to be eyeballing weights and really not wanting to listen. So what I would probably actually have him do is I would have something of that nature, like 8 to 10 sets, and I would have him do a 3-position power clean. So a high hang from the knee and from the floor. I don't care if he does it touch and go. So if he wants to do the hang, drop the bar, reset and go, I'm cool with that. But I would have him hold just like a 2 or 3 second pause in the receive. Here's the catch. If he's doing what he's supposed to be doing and actually landing and going 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, and then standing, if he's progressing load through that and he's very conscious of it, I think he'll stay in the position really well. It's just for him, he puts on, he's got 135 on the bar. He goes 185, 225, 245, 275. These big jumps, and he doesn't have the focus is where he loses it. So I think if he starts out, he's fully capable of doing this starting at 185 with a 1,002, 1,003, and then a knee and then a floor of the same prescription. And I say every round you're allowed to increase 10 pounds, which for him is small jumps. By the time he's on his 10th round, he's going to be somewhere around 245, 250, probably still landing the feet well. So I would let him incrementally increase. But with your number one rule is that 3-second pause when you land.
But would you have him pause like parallel? Will you give him a depth that
I
you
don't
want him to do?
I think you can. I don't think I would with him because like my give and take knowing him really well is if he'll listen to me and do those 8 sets or 10 sets with that pause, that's awesome for him. Those are like, it's going to be big gains. If I ask him to do that and hold a depth, he's going to be like, I don't want to really do this. So it's kind of like me just knowing him psychologically. I think you could do it that way for sure. Do like 2-inch, 4-inch parallel, and then every round they do 2-inch, 4-inch parallel. That would be totally fine. But I think the effect of the weight incrementally increasing and he has the focus on stopping, what'll naturally happen is he'll go from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and start to do that anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But that's
Something I
also
wanted
me
to
knowing
add.
him really well too. Go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, something I wanted to add that actually Shy from my gym, he did. I was like, I want to handstand walk. And I'm like, I can do like 4 and then I come down, something goes, lack of conviction. But I'm telling him like, I don't really want to practice it because it's like, at some point, like I'm already annoyed about it.
Yeah.
So what he prescribed was it within a workout that okay, so today you're going to do like bike and then handstand walk. So you get tired, and then the next one you're going to get tired on your midline doing wall balls, intervals of wall balls, handstand walk. So that way I was like, oh, okay, you know what, that's more fun because
You
something that I
got
don't want to practice.
you got your practice in, but in the setting of you're like, oh, I also got a workout in, and I feel like I got a workout in, so
Yeah.
it's more rewarding.
Yes, exactly. And it was like intervals too, like I allows me to rest. And I'm like, okay. And I found out, okay, that's a good way to make someone practice when they don't really want to practice.
That
Like,
and I'm 100% with what he did with you. And like when you implement a clock, I think that goes a really long way too. So like if someone's gonna practice something, and I mean, dude, I do the same thing, and I just say, oh, I'm gonna do handstand walks for 10 minutes. The first 2 minutes are just packed with handstand walks in practice, and then the next 8 are like 3 or 4 more attempts of a lot of bullshit in between, and there's not focus. Versus if I say you're gonna do an 8-minute EMOM of 30 seconds of handstand walk. Well, that's my window to work, right? So it's like that clock hits, and then the clock is this accountability coach for me. So that's putting a clock in like structure around the practice. I 100% think is helpful. Um, I had a guy that was at our gym. He coached a little bit, and he was, I think, one of the best coaches I have ever been around. Not because he had a really good technical knowledge, but he was just very good with people. And what he would do is like on recovery days, he would write himself a workout up, and it would be just like Shay did. It'll be like you're gonna ski 50 cows, and then you're gonna do 50 candlesticks, and then you're gonna bike 50 cows. You're gonna do 50 donkey kicks. And basically, what would happen is on like the candlesticks, he was doing that to mobilize his ankles. And then eventually, as he was going through the set, he would start to throw in like some single legs, and it would be pistol work. But you never even realized he was doing pistol work. And then, the kick ups and the donkey kicks, the first 15 of them were like this really dumb donkey kick. And then the back half started turning into these kick ups and handstand holds for 3 to 5 seconds. So like he was working on freestanding handstands without like the like annoyance of doing it. So I do think any way you can get creative is huge pluses, for yourself, for clients, whoever. I love that.
Dude, Jose, that's what I'm doing right now for all the running. So I've been running a mile or up more than a mile every day. And so what I decided is
Justin
I
is
hate
doing
running.
hero
I'm doing
workouts with
hero
John.
watts.
It's
I'm finding
ridiculous.
hero watts that have an accumulation of like 1600 or 1,600 meters in it. And it's like, all right, this is actually fun now. I can like start doing some other types of movements within the running piece.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I think it's smart. Yeah, because if you send me out, I'm like you. If you send me out on a run and it's just a run, I'm not really enjoying it very much. That's something, if you guys ever get the chance to take a road capacity, I know I've talked about that before, that he talks about. He's like, you got to get good at like getting sneaky with what you want your athlete to do, so they don't fully realize that you're having them work on running or work on pacing, stuff like that. All right, we'll do last video. This is Elise. She is working on some medium ring muscle up works. She's pretty much solely focusing on the turnover. Before we get into her movement, I'm gonna play it, and I want you to make a comment at me of like if you were at your level 4 getting evaluated, what they would probably be thinking evaluating you. Build awareness around these things. Is there any fast takeaways you guys have? She's not dip. She's not dipping, right? So if right, it's an obvious, but it's so obvious that it's almost like you miss it. There's a reason she's not dipping. The reason she's not, it's not because she doesn't have a ring dip. But if I do not know Elise, and she's going to be doing this, and I maybe have witnessed her do like one super scrappy, maybe two strict ring dips, and show me she has control. In a Metcon, this was Nate, which is a 20-minute AMRAP, so she's going to be here a lot. Not a good idea. I know her, and like I do know that she has the capability of controlling, and like when she's like, it's not a good idea to do this anymore. She's a coach, and she's a very smart coach. She'll stop herself and go to the other low rings. So this was very early on in the workout. But I wouldn't let her do this because of that factor. Because like minute 15, a lot of fatigue. She's already got a couple things going on here that could even more put her at risk. I'm kind of asking for an issue potentially because of the prerequisite strict strength on the rings. Does that make sense?
So then you're saying that if you were at the L4, you would always have her work on the low rings?
I'm not putting her. Yeah, there's no chance I'm putting her here.
Okay.
Like I would need her to display to me that she has plenty of prerequisite strength, because like that number one would be a safety concern. And not just like prerequisite strength where she can crank a ring dip out, but like I need the confidence that she's going to be able to not, the wheels aren't going to fall off the bus 5 minutes into this workout. And the other thing I'm going to think of for them too is like, I'm the movement's so modified that I don't have her even moving through the ranges of motion that a ring muscle up is. So if part of the reason upper body strength is an issue, I would like her to perform some kind of press so she develops more strength, eventually when she gets there. Because honestly, if she jumps up on the rings and bangs out a turnover and she can't dip it, who fucking cares? She didn't do a muscle up, doesn't count. I mean, she would be happy. It'd be celebrated, but the next step is want the muscle up. Beyond that, let's look at movement. She does a damn good job, except for one small thing.
I would like hip higher.
The hip. D, you're up next.
I would say she needs to bring her hands further down to her sternum. She's turnovering, like they're coming up to here somewhat.
So the hip higher, like both of you guys are right. If you take the hip and it goes up a little bit more like a ring row, it's gonna make it way easier for her to go fist bump at sternum, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're low rings, she starts her turnover way too soon, but she's able to save it because she has that jump, right? So if you slow-mo it, boom, right there, she's starting to come separate, right? She should be facing and bringing them together as she gets closer to her chest. If she can get to that point, she's got the turnover. But if this point happens and she's trying an actual muscle up, she's turned over way too soon, and it's just going to kind of block her out from being able to actually finish it. So I like that she has the capability of sticking this end and showing some good control. That's awesome. But she needs to have a lot more patience and get those fists. I saw both you guys just do it. Get those fists here and then go. Because otherwise, if she starts her turnover and those fists are separated and they're up here, she will never get through the window on an actual muscle up. If you play this through, you go, oh, fuck yeah, nice job. Like, right? It resembles a muscle up pretty well. But when you look at it from that very nuancy, she's missing that gap and she's out here versus here, that could be the one thing that prevents her, strength is coming along nicely for her, but like that's gonna prevent her from getting through the ring muscle ups. Mike, that got on the call, or he's in the middle of a move right now. He should be on next week, but he does the same thing. He goes to do his muscle ups, he splits, and it's like he hits here and there's a roadblock. He can't get through. And then if you watch him on the low rings, he's got a ridiculous amount of strength. But every time he practices the low rings, he pulls and he's always out here and his feet just save him. Those low rings have to be as perfect as possible. I need to get to those positions for for them to then be very effective on those higher rings. We're creating movement patterns and like the muscle memory, basically, right? If
So
the
would you
low ring
suggest
split, go ahead, Justin.
would you suggest that she lifts her hips higher so she's more horizontal by using her grounded foot? Because
I
that would
I I think
resemble.
that could help. I think if the rings got a little lower, or she jumped off of 2 feet to be able to do that more, it would be helpful positionally. I think because she's going to the 1 foot, it's a lot harder to like elevate herself to where she needs to elevate herself to hit that I'm tight here, I'm close here, and then scrape through. So yeah, I do think more hips higher, more jump, lower rings. Because if I practice, what's a good if I practice doing a loopy snatch and then I go to states and I try to, hit a snatch PR and I know I'm supposed to keep the bar close, but I've been practicing loopy snatches every time, I'm probably going to do a loopy snatch. It's the same thing on low rings. And every time a low ring happens and this happens, what's going to happen when they actually attempt to muscle up? That's their muscle memory pattern. It's going to happen again. This is I think, a really tough one to coach because like your relentless knob needs to get turned up a lot on the volume. And like it's going to be better for people to slow down and they're going to want to roll their eyes at you and they're not going to want to do it because it's not that fun. But it's a big one on position.
So, but can you go back? I want to see where okay, I guess not. I guess her feet are aligned with the rings.
Yeah, she's about under him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like she has an attempt of staying close, but you see like that, I would call that like collarbone, upper chest. Like she still needs to be like pulling it down and still close at that point.
So, but then in a workout or, would you, let's say she's not getting it. She's just, as much as you say, fist bump lower into your sternum, she's not getting it. Would you break down the ring muscle up and say, let's just do the pull to your sternum at least like a few times until you get it and then try again?
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing. Like her same little jump, like exactly what she's doing here, but she pulls and just goes bump, maybe
Right.
down, bump.
Yeah.
Have her do 2 of those and then be like, I want you to be there still and then go ahead and turn it over. It would be like if we had a barbell and you go and someone's, pulling really early and you go do a clean pull for me. And then your next one is a clean so they can feel the extension before they bend the arms. Like you're giving her just a broken down movement to find it. I think that would be fine. And honestly, I think it would be fine too if you just had her do a fist bump there for a little bit. Ring muscle up, I think, is one of the hardest things to coach. Like, you guys probably go, well, yeah, it's really technical, but like, I don't even necessarily mean from like a fully technical point. I think it's really hard to coach because you have so much going on with that movement. You have strength, mobility, like the skill of it. You have all these 3 elements that are coming into play just to do it well. And then you have a lot of people that are not near a ring muscle up that you also have to kind of keep entertained and engaged. So it's like all coaching tools come out on that ring muscle up day because you have a lot to teach, a lot to correct, and a lot to see. And then you have to be your showman and make it fun for people too. So I do think that's really tough.
So what I find a lot of the times is that, so when I have like a lot of beginners and we're like in the skill, they want to do what everybody else is doing. So they want to go through the transitions and I take them through the progression. Then eventually I have them try a few of the transitions. But then when it comes to the workout and I say, okay, we're not going to work on transitions. We're going to work on like, the false grip to your sternum. And then let's do a push up or, jump up if you can't sustain yourself up there and then go slowly down. But then a lot of people don't want to do that. They want to do the transition and they're going to do the transition as much as you tell them, let's not do that because you're not hitting the positions. They'll still want to do the transitions.
That's I think where that like thing that I need to work on comes into play, and that relentlessness comes in.
Like
And
stop
it's
them
like,
and have them be mad at you?
no, I'm not saying you have to stop them, but like if someone is able to like do the transitions, but they're just doing it not well, stand by them and do your positions. Ball script. 1, 2, 3. And like be okay. Like this was feedback I just got. Be okay with slowing down, and while everyone's working, make them do a few reps with you like that in that wad.
Slowly.
Yeah, and be like and just be real. You're gonna earn me letting you go faster because I want you to actually get a ring muscle up later and not bullshit this.
Okay.
Just be honest with them, because like at the end of the day too, if someone goes, Nate, your bullshit practice rep is never going to help you. This is how you're actually going to get there. I kind of respect it because I'm like, well, damn, this person actually wants me to get to a muscle up eventually. It's like that, like tough love parenting almost type vibe.
Yeah.
And I know that it's hard to balance, but like slow people down and stand there a little bit. Something I do on the muscle up day that I think works really good, because you do have people in class that also don't give a fuck about learning muscle up. And they're like, I just want to sweat and be sore tomorrow. So I tell them, we're going to do a skill session. And when we get there, I'll give you something that you can just move and be mindless with. And so some people I do that as well. And it's usually those people that I'm like giving something like that to are the people that shouldn't be doing a ring muscle up transition anyway. So for them to do false grip ring rows and push-ups was actually what they should do regardless. But to them, they go, oh, Coach Deanna tailored to me because she knows I just want to work out hard. So I kind of always give that little spiel before I get into it. So the people that don't want to be doing it also know I'm not going to make you do this for 60 straight minutes, even in the Metcon class. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's just where I think the people skills and balancing, it is the hardest part of coaching.
Right. I just like whenever I taught the ring muscle up, when it was time to do the transitions, it's always like, okay, go hit the position, but go fast, because you have to have a fast transition. And it wasn't until recently that you mentioned it before that, okay, it's okay to slow them down on each position. And that's part of mechanics, consistency, and then intensity.
And it's threshold, and it's
Yeah.
threshold training, right? If someone can do a low ring transition and they can do it very quickly and they're false gripped, they're staying close, and they're doing all these things really well, then yeah, go fast because you're hitting the mechanics and consistency.
Yeah, makes sense.
Versus if they can do it when you're coaching and you go fist bump, scrape through, and whatever you're going to call out, and they're perfect. But then the moment you add speed, now you're losing the threshold training, right? So that person should go slow versus the other person that's more advanced should go faster because they're able to go faster with their mechanics and their consistency. And then therefore then and only then intensity, and that's the speed. You're like, damn, easier said than done though, for sure. Like it's a hard thing to balance. Yeah, but it's okay to slow people down. It's the same thing as taking some weight off the bar.
Right.
You're just finding where each person needs to be. I think that was a good end.
That's very hard to do more than, I mean, it's very easy to say.
Hard.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I was
so much easier said than done.
Yeah. Exactly. So I was in a one of these round table that they do in CrossFit, and they were promoting CrossFit affiliate programming, the CAP, and they were all asking, how do you engage them to do one day only gymnastico? How do you do only weightlifting class? Like, how do you do that? And they were like, what do you mean, how do you do? You are the coach, you are the owner. It's like you are the parent. You're not saying to your sons like, hey, do you want to eat vegetables? Like, you tell them to. So
I do think that's super spot on, because I do think it's the culture you create. If you don't have that culture and then you just program 10x3 weighted strict pull-ups, there's going to be a lot of people that come in and go, what the fuck is this? But if you're educating and you're like, that is okay for a heavy day and we can make strides, they'll understand it. But yeah, I do think it's spot on. But that's also a little easier said than done too, when you don't have someone in your face.
It's like when we have cardio days in the gym, like people don't come, and it's like it's
Yeah.
tough to make them interested in the
I
in this
also
one.
think too, when you do things like that regularly, and I don't mean like it has to be once a week, but like if I know I'm going to a gym that's going to program a 5K, and we did a 5K 8 months ago, and I'm like, oh, it's been a little bit, like it might be coming, and I see it again, I'm also not shocked that we have a 5K today. It's kind of ingrained in what we do, or if it's running intervals, it could be a million different examples. So I do think that's a part of it too. If you never do that, and then suddenly you decide to program a 5K, then there's going to be like a shockwave that comes through town and everyone's going to be upset. So it's like if I went through this in my old gym where we programmed strength and metcon, and then I got handed the keys to the programming, and I was like, well, no one's fucking coaching, so we're gonna coach one piece a day and do what CrossFit says. And the first little bit there was a shock. So what I actually ended up doing was 3 days a week was like strength and metcon, and then eventually it was 2 days a week, and eventually it was a day a week, and it was just slowly turning the tables. And like while I was doing that, explaining to people, well, when it's only a WOD, you're going to get a lot of coaching and skill development too. So they understood that. Um, but yeah, that's another easier said than done, because there's still going to be someone that's not happy. That's a hard one. But what I will say too, if like you guys get the chance to coach, and like I don't think there's a wrong or right way to do it. If it works for the affiliate, then great, keep doing what's working. But if you get a chance, like take the time to coach single workout classes, because it is a skill in itself, versus if I went into a gym and I coach strength and metcon, like I would have to very differently adapt the way I coach and get a lot faster versus what I'm used to. So it's just you're giving yourself as a coach more tools as well. That was good. We had some good discussions today. All right, you guys got anything else before we wrap it up? Cool. I enjoyed the call. That was a good one. I still got 5 videos left. So send some in, Justin. I have one of you. I think you're cleaning outside. I was gonna hit that today, but we did all weightlifting, so I went with the
Well, I
gymnastics. So
will
we'll
review
hit that one
back.
next week.
I will check back how to study running, so we can do the running slow-mo, because I don't remember what you
I've
read.
got I've got a girl in purple pants on here, and then I've got a guy in yellow shorts. So I have two, and Andrea in the back. So we've got a couple running videos that we'll still hit. But yeah, send some obscure stuff. I had a kettlebell swing too. If you guys see someone doing something that's different, yeah, record them. Like when I was at Riptide, I would just tell people I do a coaching call and we do movement analysis. Do you mind if I record you? And I've never had anybody say no. And then
In
what
my
I would
class, they
tell,
already told me I don't want to be on your calls.
then don't film that person. But then I would send them the clip, and most people liked it. But that's also, I think, like Riptide people were very into getting coached, and they were very used to it, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
new to them either. But yeah, if someone doesn't want to be on, don't fucking put them on. We don't need them. All right, we'll call it a day, guys. Good week, and I will see y'all Tuesday.
Okay.
D, let's try to
Tuesday.
get your split trick scheduled tomorrow if you have
I
time.
guess.
Okay, yeah, we can
Justin,
do that.
see Jose.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll watch the video tonight of you coaching, and then we'll get on and we'll do a call. Do you have any
Okay.
good times tomorrow?
Hold on, let me look at my calendar.